Throughout time, there have been mysteries mankind cannot explain. But advances in technology have led to new theories, and the search is underway for evidence that may unlock the most baffling questions of our time. On Mystery Quest. The war is over. Nazi Germany's Third Reich has fallen. Those responsible for the Holocaust's worst crimes are fleeing. And help appears to come from a sinister organization set up to ensure the rise of a new empire. A Fourth Reich. The name of this organization, Odessa. Germany was in chaos. The Nazi Party had crumbled. The SS, Hitler's elite paramilitary unit, 1 million strong, were hunted. But they were difficult to track, and many escaped capture. Many believe a shadowy group known as the Organization of Former SS Members, or Odessa, helped them evade justice. This powerful unit had a sinister mission: to help SS members escape, to carry out Hitler's vision. Their goal? To create a Fourth Reich, a totalitarian regime of Aryan supremacy on a worldwide scale. This organization was first uncovered by famed Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal.
There was a period immediately after the Second World War when British and American organizations did pursue the Nazis with some rigor, but then that dropped off. So it was in the interest of Nazi hunters like Wiesenthal to make sure that the West took an interest in pursuing Nazi criminals.
It was later made public by novelist Frederick Forsyth for his bestseller, The Odessa File.
Wiesenthal hoped by manipulating Forsyth's novel that he could actually proceed further with the prosecution of certain Nazi war criminals, would therefore be exposed in a popular novel.
Many questioned the legitimacy of Odessa. But Wiesenthal claimed that the organization was real.
Wiesenthal seems to have clung to the idea that the Odessa organization existed as a sort of mammoth organization. He first seems to have heard about it from an SS officer.
But there are few documents that mention Odessa by name. And most German officials deny the existence of the highly organized, centrally funded group portrayed in the novel. Yet some facts are beyond dispute. 150,000 Nazis were accused of war crimes, but only 30,000 were ever tried, and even fewer convicted, most immediately after the war. Some of the most evil, like Joseph Mengele and Martin Bormann, were never brought to trial. Most just disappeared, never to be heard from again. Now, Mystery Quest will investigate whether the secret network called Odessa existed. The expedition team will follow the escape route through Austria and into Italy. They'll seek physical evidence of the organization's existence and proof it helped provide the protection, documents, and money to make these escapes possible. The science team will be searching for evidence that not only did Odessa exist, but the German government actively sought to cover up its existence. To do this, they'll investigate a report that claims one high-ranking SS officer's death was faked in order to conceal his escape to South America. Mystery Quest will also examine the theory that rogue elements inside organizations like the Red Cross and the Catholic Church helped Odessa. And they'll investigate the theory that the idea for Odessa traced back to Hitler's most trusted staff members. Perhaps the most notorious SS officer to escape was Dr. Joseph Mengele. Known as Auschwitz's Angel of Death, he killed untold numbers in his horrific medical experiments. The doctor was photographed in South America in the decades after the war ended. But how did he get there?
This document is extremely revealing. It confirms the idea that there was an organization at work smuggling Nazis out of Europe. In this case, it involves 4 people in Innsbruck who were smuggling Nazis across the border from Austria into Italy over the Brenner Pass. These are not major people, but at the end of the file, we have the names of the SS people they're working for. All throughout the file, it talks about the organization. There is no name for the organization, but at the very start, at the very opening, we have a document from the year 1969, which says Odessa Organization.
That's 3 years before Wiesenthal went public with the name of the organization. This means the Austrian government was investigating Odessa even before Wiesenthal. The file is filled with information. And towards the end of it, Goni makes another significant find, a map.
What's this? Is the K-Centrale?
Is where the planes start?
This map, which was actually sent by an informant from Argentina, and he drew a map explaining how the network worked. We know they escaped from Germany. We know they traveled from Italy to Argentina, but the question was, how did they manage to cross the border into Italy without being caught? And the incredible thing is that this map shows us how they were smuggled across the Brenner Pass to Genoa, and even draws a little ship showing how the ship goes to Argentina. So it is a missing link in the whole Odessa question.
And the trail leads to the Tyrol region of Austria.
This file will allow me to do something I've never done before, which is retrace the steps that the Nazis took as they escaped from Austria into Italy.
There is one document that appears to be evidence of the beginnings of Odessa. It is called the Maison Rouge Report. Declassified in 2000, it details a secret meeting that took place on August 10th, 1944. The document tells of a conference between Germany's top industrialists and SS leaders in Strasbourg, France, at a hotel called Maison Rouge.
The Maison Rouge meeting was attended by representatives of the key German industries, and it was presided over by a high-ranking officer from the SS, and talked about what would happen in the future now that Germany was certain to lose the war.
The plan was for the Nazis to regroup and rise again.
The whole emphasis was on economics, banking and economics, to make the actual bankers and industrialists set up an organization abroad and transfer their funds abroad.
The report detailed the plan to set up companies near sources of hydroelectric power, where high-ranking Nazi officers could hide out and pretend to study water resources while secretly developing weapons to take back power. At least one fugitive SS officer is known to have held just such a position. The infamous Adolf Eichmann. He worked for a hydroelectric company in Argentina after he escaped from Germany.
If you try and track finances to and fro, you come across some very interesting anomalies and instances between Europe and Latin America.
Some believe this meeting was the birthplace of Odessa. But there has always been controversy about whether the meeting ever really happened. Instead, many historians believe top Nazis got away with the help of individual Nazi sympathizers scattered around the world. Still others believe rogue priests in the Catholic Church were responsible.
There were certain priests who were prepared to falsify papers in order to allow certain wanted Nazis to escape from Europe, particularly towards South America.
Historians believe those church members who helped Nazis flee were motivated by their fear of the rise of communism.
Throughout the 30s and the 40s, the church had feared the encroachment of Bolshevism. So the Nazis seemed, of the two evils, to be the better evil.
There are some that believe the power behind Odessa was Hitler's executive staff. Martin Bormann was the Führer's right-hand man.
Martin Bormann was the head of Hitler's chancellery, and therefore he was in charge of the party. It is often said that Bormann actually corrupted Hitler in some way, that his policies became Hitler's policies, though that may be a little far-fetched. He was certainly a very Machiavellian, a very cunning character, and what he wanted, he generally got.
With Russian troops inside the city limits, Bormann tried to escape Berlin on May 1st, 1945. But according to Arthur Axmann, a minor SS official, Bormann was killed in Russian crossfire. Most believe Bormann died on the streets of Berlin.
Well, Arthur Axmann was in the SS. He claimed he saw Bormann's face in the moonlight and recognized it.
But some claim Axmann was lying to cover Bormann's escape. When Allied forces went to look for the body, it was nowhere to be found. Bormann was tried at Nuremberg in absentia, where Axmann testified.
Arthur Axmann, when he told his story at the Nuremberg trial, was laughed out of court, because I think he made 7 alterations to his testimony at that time.
There were immediate allegations Bormann, along with Joseph Mengele, escaped to South America. And for years, sightings were reported. Then in 1972, German construction workers digging a trench in Berlin uncovered the skeletons of 2 men. They were just 36 feet from where Arthur Axmann claimed to have seen Bormann's dead body. German authorities claimed one was Bormann, and in 1998, they conducted DNA tests to confirm it. There were facts uncovered during the forensic autopsy which point to a cover-up.
Yes, I do believe the skeleton belongs to Martin Bormann. However, I think it had traveled.
Thomas believes the skull was exhumed from Paraguay and reburied in Berlin to hide the fact that Martin Bormann really had survived the war and escaped.
The problem was this. When you come to Bormann's skull, it was encased in red clay. All the other bones in that area were clean with no trace of clay on them.
The red clay is unlike any found in Berlin, but it is similar to the earth found in the Ita region of Paraguay, where Bormann is rumored to have fled. And there were other inconsistencies.
The skeleton were incomplete. Some of the vertebrae were missing. There were several worn teeth which had fillings, not recorded in original records.
Criminals have been known to move bodies in order to lead investigators away from the evidence at the real crime scene.
Things like this have happened. Bodies have suddenly reappeared in another grave.
But if Bormann didn't die in Berlin, where did he go? Graham Wood is a journalist researching the link between Bormann and Odessa. He begins his hunt with a clue in Asunción, the capital of Paraguay.
Here we have someone claiming that Martin Bormann was in Paraguay and that he died in 1959.
Paraguay's Ministry of Justice contains documents known as the Terror Files. They detail the torture, kidnappings, and corruption committed by former dictator Alfredo Stroessner, a Nazi sympathizer of German descent. Under his rule, hundreds of SS officers may have been granted safe passage into the country.
This is a document dated from the 24th of August in 1961. One of the interesting things about this document is that it brings both Nazi criminals together. It was Mengele and Bormann. Bormann, who was sick with stomach cancer in Asunción, and then, according to this, Mengele, who came to treat him under the name of Don Fritz in 1959.
The document says Mengele was called to Bormann's side.
It says here that Bormann and Mengele were both in an area of Paraguay called Hohenau. They lived on the property of a man named Alban Krug.
But there was little Mengele could do to save Bormann.
In April, they received intelligence that Martin Bormann had died in 1959 in Asunción of stomach cancer, and that soon afterward his body was taken to a cemetery in Ita, Paraguay. If this is true, it's truly shocking.
The presence of Bormann in Paraguay could be proof not only of Odessa, but also of a major cover-up.
There's the mention of a lot of places, a lot of names, and if there was a network of people who were trying to help Mengele and Bormann, we have a pretty good sense from these documents of where we would want to go in Paraguay to find out who they were and where they were.
The town of Hohenau was founded in 1900 by German immigrants, and many here were loyal to the fatherland and sympathetic to the Nazi cause, making it the perfect hiding place for fugitives like Mengele and Bormann. Wood finds a shipping company named Krug, the same as the man alleged to have housed Mengele and Bormann. The owner turns out to be Alban's grandson.
¿Conoce Alban Krug?
Y él era mi abuelo.
Su abuelo.
Sí.
¿Y él todavía está viviendo? ¿O?
No, él falleció hace muchos años.
He's too young to remember Bormann or Mengele, but tells Wood the farmhouse they stayed in is on the outskirts of town. Wood discovers it off a remote, muddy road. It was sold years ago by the family.
In the archive, we kept seeing the name Alban Krug, and that's his farmhouse right there. Josef Mengele, according to the documents, lived there, and so did Martin Bormann. Mengele, we know, was there for about 15 months, and we can see why he would have come to a place like this. This is the middle of nowhere in southern Paraguay. It was very, very difficult for us to reach here, and no way to find his place unless you really know where you're going.
The map Goni uncovered in Innsbruck has led him to the foot of the Brenner Pass. Nazi war criminals were able to safely flee from Germany into Italy, undetected, using this mountain pass.
In this idyllic mountain village on the border between Austria and Italy is where some of the most nefarious war criminals who escaped Europe after the war went through. Behind me is the guest house Venaders. We're on the Austrian side of the border with Italy.
Just past the inn, there's a high mountain church protecting the opening to the pass.
Documents are great for telling us the hard facts of history, but there's nothing like being on the actual spot itself. A little while ago, we were in the town of Innsbruck looking at a file about the Odessa organization. There was a map on that file. Well, now we're on one of the passes across the border from Austria to Italy that is mentioned in that map.
The trail is steep and exhausting, but Goni reaches the top.
This is the highest point in the Brenner Pass. There's the border. Over there is Austria, Germany, for all the Nazis who crossed right here. I mean, on that side there was justice, accounting for their crimes, the Nuremberg trials, and on this side is freedom.
Finally, Goni reaches the end of the trail in the Italian town of Brennerbad, where he believes members of the church may have met the SS officers who had fled.
Pretty much the whole story is told right here, because there we have a church which signifies the priests who met the Nazis as they came off this trail in Italy and provided them with forged documents with new identities under false names. And we have the train tracks, because here's where they boarded the train to go to Genoa, from where they would cross the Atlantic to a new life on another continent. It's a hard pill to swallow, but our duty is to trying to get as close to the truth as we possibly can.
The team has followed clues to Paraguay, on the trail of SS officers Martin Bormann and Josef Mengele. They're looking for evidence that would indicate that Bormann escaped to South America following the war. Documents called the Terror Files have led to this German-styled inn.
Mengele and other Nazis would have found a lot of German sympathizers here in southern Paraguay, and particularly in this area. This is the Hotel Tyrol, which was a social center for Germans in southern Paraguay. The architecture somewhat mimics the southern European architecture of the Tyrol, where Mengele and other Nazis passed through on their way out of Europe. The roofs slope as if they're waiting to carry the weight of snow, but of course here in the jungle the snow never arrives.
The hotel is open, but virtually empty. Wood finds a row of rooms slightly removed from the rest of the hotel. Among them is room 26, which he discovered in earlier research.
According to Simon Wiesenthal, in the early 1960s, Mengele knew that he was a wanted man and he was being hunted everywhere he stayed. In this room, which he occupied in 1962, he received a phone call at 1 o'clock in the morning and immediately ran away. He scampered into the street in his pajamas. Soon after, a group of men arrived at the Tyrol, demanded to see his room, stormed it, and found it just recently vacated.
Wood asks about the hotel's past, but the owners refuse to comment. He departs Hohenau and heads to the municipal cemetery in the town of Ita, another clue from the terror files.
At the archive, we found a government document that said that Martin Bormann died in 1959 under the care of Josef Mengele. It said that immediately after he died, he was taken to the town of Ita and was buried in the municipal cemetery.
Geophysicist Neil Anderson has studied archaeological sites around the globe. Now he will help Wood examine Bormann's suspected gravesite. Anderson will use a ground-penetrating radar system, or GPR. The machine uses pulses of electromagnetic energy to show what lies underground. It will allow them to determine if Bormann's body was dug up and moved. The local gravedigger leads the men through a labyrinth of tightly packed graves. They come to a small plot that is unmarked.
So it was just in this small area?
Aquí, en este lugar,
En este lugar.
es la tumba.
Porque acá no hay ni cruz ni nada.
There's no cross, there's nothing.
I was expecting a larger site. It would make it a little bit easier to use the GPR cart that we have, but it seems as though we'll have enough room to move the cart around and acquire data over this area. So let's grab the equipment.
Perfect.
Uki Goni has been tracking the path of SS officers fleeing Nazi Germany to the port city of Genoa, Italy. He's looking for information about how they got the documents needed to leave Europe.
We're at the offices of the main newspaper here in Genova. They've done some big research on the Nazis in this town.
Goni combs through the photographs and articles. Then, something startling.
Eichmann's Red Cross passport.
Adolf Eichmann is known as the architect of the Holocaust. Charged with the final solution, he organized the transportation of millions to the Nazi death camps. The passport allowed Eichmann to flee Europe in 1950, using the alias Ricardo Clement. The sponsor for the passport application was a priest from a local Genoa church.
We've got the addresses of the priest who signed these documents.
Goni finds a picture of the priest.
This is an exciting moment for me because I've been studying on these documents quite a few years about how the Nazis came through Italy on their way to South America. But now we've got the exact addresses where they stayed in Genoa, the names of the priests who helped them.
This could prove there was a true relationship between these organizations and Odessa.
We're going to go check out on these addresses of these churches, of these hotels where the Nazis stayed. We're going to put the documents up against hard reality and see what we come up with.
For decades, rumors have swirled about a covert organization named Odessa that was dedicated to reviving the Nazi cause. Many believe the only way this could have happened is with the help of powerful organizations. The Red Cross passport of SS officer Adolf Eichmann was discovered in Genoa, Italy, and could be the key to verifying the group's existence. Uki Goni is at the Church of San Antonio di Pegli.
The reason we're here is because I found this copy in the archives of Eichmann's Red Cross passport, and it's signed by Father Eduardo Domotor. We were able to track him down. He was the priest here at San Antonio de Pegli.
Eichmann used the alias Riccardo Clement. Father Domotor of the church signed, verifying that Eichmann was actually Clement.
He came to this church, that's the first thing he did, to see Father Domotor, who took him to the Red Cross office to give him a passport. And he got it thanks to the church's intervention.
Goni sees a pattern.
Now, we know from other documents and other archives that Father Domotor was not acting alone, that he had the help and support of bishops in Rome.
The evidence seems to reveal the church at least had knowledge of an organized effort to help Nazis escape. But when Goni tries to get more information, he is turned away.
We asked for permission to film inside the church, to speak to the parish priest, to find if there were any records about Father Domotor, to see if there were any pictures of him. We weren't allowed, which probably goes to show how even 60 years on, some people are still trying to put a wall, between us and the information that would allow us to know exactly how this operation worked.
Goni begins looking for number 9 Balbi Street.
This is Via Balbi.
The location of an inn called the Pensione San Carlo that allegedly housed Eichmann before he left for South America.
This is it. This is Via Balbi number 9. This is the last place that Eichmann stayed, according to his Red Cross passport. And he's not the only one, because I know that other Nazis stayed here as well. All boarded up and closed up.
The inn looks as though it's been abandoned for decades. There's no way to get in, and no one to ask about its past. But right next door is a familiar sight.
There's the Church of San Carlo, next to the Pensione San Carlo. What we're seeing here is a pattern that seems to be repeating itself at the end of every single stage we've looked at. Like at the Brenner Pass, at the end, there's an inn next to a church. Here in Genoa, there's an inn next to a church. On this journey, we've come face to face with the real Odessa. But it's not the Odessa of fiction. It's actually much more shameful, much more compromising, much more gruesome.
In Paraguay, Mystery Quest is searching for more evidence. that high-ranking SS officer Martin Bormann escaped here after the war. They believe they may have uncovered an unmarked grave, where his remains were buried following his death here in South America. The team's theory is that Bormann's body was dug up and returned to Germany as part of a cover-up. They'll use ground-penetrating radar to examine the grave to see if there's a body in it. The Bormann gravesite does show signs of being disturbed. In Paraguay, the graves are so shallow that bricks are placed on top of them for protection.
When the gentleman raked off the surface material, you see there are all sorts of broken brick fragments. It looks like they were broken with a sledgehammer. Over here, the bricks are in place in this area, but in this area they look like they'd been vandalized.
The team is ready to deploy the radar.
Graham, this is our ground-penetrating radar unit, the control system. As we acquire the data, the data will be displayed on the screen, and what we'll essentially be generating is a two-dimensional image of the subsurface.
The machine will pulse electromagnetic waves into the ground, which will bounce off any object in the subsurface, creating a U-shaped image.
Now, how precise is this? Will we be able to see bones?
You probably won't be able to see individual bones. What we're hoping more to see is an indication that the ground looks very chaotic, as though it was disturbed. If there is a casket in place, you would anticipate seeing reflections from the top of the casket and the base of the casket. If the soil is disturbed and we don't see a casket, one logical explanation would be that the soil was excavated. If something was ever in place at this location, it was moved.
The team will need to do multiple sweeps of the site before they can get a clear reading of what lies below.
Graham, this is really cool. We've acquired the data.
Mystery Quest has undertaken an expedition across the globe to try to unlock the mystery surrounding the covert Nazi organization known as Odessa. This forensic expert believes there was an elaborate cover-up of the death of a high-ranking SS officer. This geophysicist is looking for evidence of that cover-up. And this journalist believes he's found proof that Nazis were smuggled out of Europe through Italy. The science team is at the municipal cemetery in Ita, Paraguay, trying to prove Martin Bormann was originally buried here in 1959, but was later moved to Berlin. Neil Anderson has started running ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, over the plot to get a profile of what lies beneath the surface.
So as we're moving the antenna across the surface, we're continuously acquiring data, initially along the pathway immediately adjacent to the grave, and it is coming up on the monitor screen.
So what I see on the screen right now is some wavy lines up near the surface, and then some wavy lines about 3.5, 4 feet under.
Exactly. We're seeing evidence of layering. which suggests that the ground along this pathway doesn't look like it's been disturbed.
But the machine will make 4 more passes over the gravesite before a complete image of the subsurface is revealed.
This is so cool, Grant. On the other plot, what we're seeing is a real prominent U-shaped anomaly on each and every traverse. It suggests to me that there is a coffin buried on this plot. On Borman's plot, we acquired 5 traverses. What it indicated to us, and we both saw it very clearly, is that this, where Borman's alleged grave is, the ground is chaotic. It looks like it's been disturbed, but we're not seeing any objects that are still buried in the subsurface. If there was a coffin buried on Borman's plot, it's been removed.
The GPR readings confirm that something large was once buried in Borman's alleged plot, but was subsequently moved.
Even though the gravediggers said that Bormann was buried here before, there doesn't seem to be anything at all.
The disturbance of the grave seems to give validity to the claim Bormann was buried here. Mystery Quest has discovered some important new evidence that could help confirm the existence of Odessa. The expedition uncovered a never-before-seen map in an Austrian archive, revealing that a network of people were working together to smuggle Nazi war criminals to safety. The science team discovered the alleged grave of Martin Bormann in Paraguay. And through the use of ground-penetrating radar, they were able to determine that a body was once there, but has since been moved.
What this journey really points out to us is what the real Odessa was like. We've seen how the church helped, priests helped. We know that industrialists in Germany were financing this escape. It's not one single group acting on its own. Rather, it's like interlocking gears, and where the gears meet and help each other along, that's the real Odessa.